Welcome everybody to today's SPS On Conversation, where our topic is how to become your retailer's favorite vendor with win-win buyer meetings. We'll explore how data analytics can provide the actionable insights that make your brand stand out and earn the trust of your retail buyer. Today, you're going to hear from retail industry experts from Boardriders, Leatherman, You the Fan, and of course, SPS Commerce. I'm Maddie Pierce. I'm a senior sales trainer here at SPS Commerce, and I'll be your host for today. I'm here to make sure that we answer all of your questions and that we wrap up on time as well. So that being said, if you do have a question, please drop it in the Zoom Q&A, and we'll be sure to answer that in our Q&A section with the panel members. So it is now time to introduce our panel of experts. Let's go ahead and meet them. Here we go. We will get everybody here on camera in just a moment. All right, we will get started here. Sounds like we might have lost one of our panel members, but we'll welcome back him in, no problem here. So we'll first begin with Gretchen Anderson, is a planner at Roxy, one of Boardriders' leading action sports brands. So great to have you here, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Awesome. Joe will be joining us here in a moment, but we will have Joe Coulter, who is a demand planning manager at Leatherman, the leading supplier of multi-tools since 1975. We'll welcome Joe when he is able to join us here. And then last but not least, we've got, not last but not least, but we've got Jack Quealy, an executive vice president at You the Fan, the undefeated champion of our fan products. So welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Maddie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. We've also got Tyler Pearson, a sales manager who works with our analytics team and will help facilitate our panel today. Thanks so much for joining us, Tyler.
Hey, I'm no expert, but I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
We're happy to have you as well. And then lastly, we've got Nicole Daly, a retail intelligence executive here at SPS Commerce. She was once in your role at several leading suppliers and now helps SPS customers to most effectively use their sales and inventory data. And she'll be providing us with a live demo later. So welcome, Nicole.
Thanks, Maddie.
Awesome. So to start us off, I'm actually going to hand the conversation over to Tyler. So Tyler, go ahead and take it away.
Excellent, excellent. So I see Joe joined us. Joe, sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks for being patient. We're glad to have you, and I'll introduce you here in a second. So first of all, this is a time for, we're excited to have our panelists, but we're excited to have you. And this is a time for you to get a pulse on what's working and the advice from some of your peers on how they utilize data in their day-to-day within their organizations and how ultimately they're influencing their buyer meetings. I'm a parent of two with one on the way. And I know when I had my first child, I knew nothing. I'd never changed a diaper in my life. And so I joined all the peer groups, parenting groups, read all the books. So take this time as a chance to learn. Doesn't matter where you're at in your journey, whether you're a data expert and you're looking to see how others utilize data and integrate it, or you're starting from scratch and you've never been on that journey of data and utilizing point of sale data to influence buyer meetings and optimize ultimately your organization. So with that encouragement to please ask questions, give us your input, utilize your peers. I'd like to start with a little bit deeper dive into each of our guests and panelists. So Gretchen, why don't you kick us off with a brief introduction of yourself and Roxy?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. So my name is Gretchen Anderson, and I am a sales planning manager with Boardriders. So for those of you who are familiar with Quicksilver, that was our old name, one of our many brands under the Boardriders name now in the surf industry. I have been with the company for almost 6 years, but prior to that, my entire career has been in the retail world, both on the retail and the wholesale side. So it is great to be here today.
Awesome. Joe, welcome, and sorry about the technical issues. Please take time to introduce yourself and a little bit about Leatherman.
My name is Joe Coulter. I'm the demand planning manager here at Leatherman. Been with the company 6 years in December. Leatherman is a leading multi-purpose tool and knife company. If you see anything with pliers, screwdrivers, and knives at the like REI or Lowe's, that's probably us. And we use SPS really to get in the conversations with our retailers to make sure that we're giving them the right SKUs at the right locations.
Awesome. Love that. And finally, Jack, introduce yourself and a little bit about you, the fan.
Thank you, Tyler. My name is Jack Quealy. I'm Executive Vice President of You, the Fan. We are a designer, manufacturer, and distributor of core licensed products. We're licensed with both National Football League, Major League Baseball, and over 500 colleges around the United States. We produce a variety of products. Our most known product, if any of you might have, is a product called Sportula, and it's basically a hamburger flipper with a team logo laser etched in it on the handle. We also make other grilling and tailgating products. I'll say family fun products. Puzzles are the good example of that, and also fan cave products. So many different designs of different licensed products you can hang on your wall and so forth for your favorite team.
Awesome. If I'm ever hiking to the beach to attend a tailgate, I think I know the 3 people to call and help me on that journey.
There you go.
We're glad to have you. Yeah. Let's jump in. So first question, let's hear from each of you about why you're data driven. You're obviously here because you believe in the value of data. Why are you data driven, and how has it helped you in your conversations with buyers? First, let's start with Jack.
Thank you. The old days of going in and selling to a buyer or a merchant and saying, well, here it is, it looks great, we think it's going to sell real well, and then come back 3 months later and say, oh, by the way, how did it sell? Don't exist any longer. Now you must be on top of your game for both yourself and your competitors, and the best way to do that is with data. Bring in that analytics, talking about what's selling, what's not selling, both for pre-buys regarding customers that are brand new customers with existing data from maybe your sales in general, down to an individual customer that you continue want to do business with, that we use it on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis for every line review. In fact, there isn't a meeting that starts in our company that doesn't start with data. And that's how important it is. And I think our customers expect it of us. And if you don't give it, well, you might go by the wayside because someone else will do it and do a better job at it than you.
So true. Hey, Joe, what would you add? Maybe elaborate on your go-to data metrics and what you look at to prepare for those buyer meetings or to prepare your sales org for those meetings.
Yeah, being prepared is very important with our retailers and our customers, especially when it comes to what is and what is not selling. A lot of the times when we look at month to date, year to date, last year and last year metrics now, because 2019 was a fluke, we go in there trying to give them the best items possible for where they're located. You won't sell the same types of tools, knives, or multi-purpose tools in New York City as you would in Boise, Idaho. They're two different customer bases and have very different types of people that want to buy different tools. And so with data, you can back that up, whether it's to end of life a certain item or bring them a new one. You can show how it's selling at other markets, other geographies, and make sure that they're set up for the best.
Awesome. And lastly, Gretchen, I know you're data driven.
Mm-hmm.
How's that informing your conversations and influencing your meetings with buyers from a broad perspective?
Well, I would echo what Jack and Joe have said, but it's really data is what gets you in the door and ultimately is what's going to get you that business. As they both kind of alluded to, the retail scene has changed over the years. And so the way we used to get business with retailers is different than it used to. And so any additional information that we can provide to the buyer is going to help them make more educated decisions and in a shorter period of time, which is ultimately the goal, is how quickly can we get this product turned.
Awesome. So true. So I think there's definitely agreement across the board that data helps uncover opportunities. You've all stressed that the days of old are no longer here, and you must be data forward to enable and empower those conversations. Moving on to specifically buyer meetings and the communications that go into that, you know, Joe, you referenced preparing for those meetings. What data do you share? How is that influencing your conversations, and what database insights are your buyers really tuning into? What matters to them?
What really matters to them is if something's selling or if something's not selling. A lot of retailers want more turns. That means stuff is flying off the shelves. And we give a lot of really granular data. We look at locations at the store level and at the SKU level, especially there. We love dashboards, and retailers actually love pictures. You don't want paragraphs up there. Charts kind of showing high level stories is perfect. And then you can start describing what's causing that. What are the forces behind it? And then providing them examples of where other retailers have placed products to help them fly off the shelves. We do promotions at different locations at different retailers. And if some are saying this product's not selling, we can show them data that says, well, it is selling. We need to work with you to get it in a better spot. So that week to date sell through is very important for them. And then inventory levels are very important, especially with the supply chain issues that we're all facing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Gretchen, what would you add?
I would add to all of the points Joe mentioned, but also the margin element of it is to make sure that the product that we are pushing and suggesting to the buyer is something that's going to be able to go out the door at the MSRP rather than a particular item that customers wait for that markdown to happen, because that is what's going to help them drive their business, meet revenue targets at the end of the day.
Awesome. Anything to add, Jack?
Quickly, I think it's all about, we use the expression, it's about sell through and not sell in. And I think that's very important to our customers. And I think that every customer is unique. Walmart looks at things different than Target looks at things differently compared to Dick's Sporting Goods. And they all have their hot buttons on what they look at. Some might be turn, some might be margin, some might be top line sales, some might be bottom line profitability. So we kind of provide it all. On a weekly basis, we send out to our top customers information regarding very top level, very, I say maybe 4 or 5 bullet points at max to kind of summarize last week's business and then provide the detail behind. So if they want to go in and open up the spreadsheet and look at it in great detail, well, it's there. But generally, buyers don't have a lot of time. They want it summarized quickly, and they want action points that if you see something happening in the marketplace, in a region, in a store, in a product, whether something's working or not working, they want us to point it out to make their job easier. And the easier to make it the job of a merchant, the more they'll do business with you if the product's selling.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, just like any relationship, trust is paramount. And I think the same applies in a vendor, retailer, merchant, supplier type relationship. And that trust has to be developed, fostered, and then ultimately grown. And I'm curious how each of you have done that. Any specific examples potentially you could share, how you've done that with some of your retailers and how data has maybe helped fuel building that trust. Gretchen, why don't you start?
Okay. I would say one example I have is we are at a point with our business right now where we are selling into many of the retailers that we can. So now it is coming to how can we expand our assortment with them? So being able to get your buyer to trust you when you're saying, I know you've never sold this category of ours, but here's why I think it will work. And so we have started with shop and shops with a few of our retailers. And really what those are testing grounds for products that we are suggesting they start to sell. They're a little hesitant on it. We say, hey, let's start with these 2 doors. And we start to track those with a lot of the metrics that the 3 of us have brought up this afternoon. And with that, we're able to tell, okay, this particular style, this particular color does really well, or this one doesn't. And then from there, we start to build an assortment that we can expand to additional regions or the entire United States, depending on how large it is. And we have found that in itself has built a lot of trust and relationships with our buyers in order to get that additional business with them that otherwise they might be a little hesitant to do.
Awesome. I can imagine how, actually everyone, you're in the wrong industry or wrong role. If you're in sales and not trying to grow your assortment with retailer, everyone's asking that question, but I could see how building that trust could shift you to, another player in the vendor community to more of a go-to resource and an advisor for that particular category, that particular buyer. Anything that you would elaborate on, Joe, maybe that how you've become that kind of go-to, any examples or anything you'd add to the conversation?
Yeah, and I think, that test kind of market is a great way to build that trust. We've done that with some of our military vendors on bases, providing them historical data on other places, or providing them free displays, saying, hey, let's put this on an end cap. We have a free quarter pallet display for you. Let's see how it goes. And then look at that, go back to it and see if it was successful. If it is, help them implement it into more companies or into more of their store locations. We also aren't afraid to tell the bad news. I think that sometimes when you present that without them having to call you out on it, builds that trust that you're willing to own your mistakes. And then you help them solve it by providing more data, whether that's providing a discount to them on wholesale so they can offer a discount, or providing them some sort of marketing for each store location to help push that tool, or even tell them a story of how they can explain it to the customers. Leatherman is USA made right here in Portland, Oregon, and we're very proud of that. And I know a lot of our consumers are proud of using a USA made item. And so having the retailers have that knowledge also gives them some power and some responsibility to help sell our tools.
What an awesome way to shift a negative into a positive and build trust and be transparent in what happened and trying to solve with solutions that are data backed. I love that. Jack, you've got, I know, a vast amount of experience. How have you built trust? How have you leveraged data in the past?
Well, number one, I want to reiterate what both Gretchen and Joe have said, that, starting off small is sometimes a good thing. We always like the big orders, but if we start off small and tight and use the data from those sales, then to grow the business, we're a lot smarter, the buyer's a lot smarter, and there's less risk. And I think that's where the trust is developed. Sometimes in my past, I've had situations where buyers have said, well, we need to order this much. First thing, it doesn't happen often, but once in a while I'll say, no, order half as much as that. Don't bring that much in, because I don't want to be sitting here with you only selling 50% of the units at the end of the program. I'd rather be sitting here, you selling 95% and build a better business for the following season or the following year. And I think that's where trust really takes into place when you're dealing with a merchant.
Awesome. I wish my wife would heed the same advice when we go to Hobby Lobby, starting small. We don't have to buy everything all at once. No, really good points. And thank you all for, I think, really practical tips to utilize data and build trust, because we know it's important. So I know a lot of our attendees may struggle with getting the attention of buyer in the first place. We've all got tons of noise in our lives, both professional and personal, and to get in front of your buyer is paramount, but it's difficult to do. Any tips that you'd offered the group on how to really break through that noise and get to that first conversation? Let's start with Jack. You just start with you again.
I think, again, it's providing that data up front, pointing out some key things about their stores. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to add a little bit other than data, doing store visits and showing that you visited their stores and their establishments and not just sat in your chair and made a decision to start trying to sell them. And I think the combination of those two things, maybe even taking some information out there that you find in the stores, bringing it back, providing the analytics and going, well, I think I used this example yesterday that we had a situation where one buyer was having trouble getting over the hump about buying this particular product, but then using that data that we had, but they hadn't really looked at too carefully because they didn't have time, of what was sold on their .com business, and saying, well, 40% of your business is online is coming from that particular product. And it's like the light goes off, and then someone realizes, again, using that information, making sure that's correct, and that trust is built. And all of a sudden, then you have a program in, and in this case, we had a nice program for this year that's growing to a larger program for next year.
Fantastic, and congrats on that. It's cool how you utilize data to kind of tell that story and turn on that light bulb. Very cool. Gretchen, what about you?
We utilize a lot of the dashboards. So we have found, to get the attention of a lot of our buyers, we include a lot of images if it's some of our top products that have sold with like customers. We also include some very high level graphs. And I would say it's a combination of high level information, so it's easily digestible, but then also something that is attractive to the eye. Because if you're flipping through all your emails and you have a chart that essentially says, do this and you're going to make additional money, they're probably going to stop and maybe look at a few sentences that you've written. So we try and get into the head of a buyer. If I were a buyer, what is most important to me right now? And that is what we attempt to address when we're contacting them.
Oh, great. Very cool. Joe, what else would you add?
I'm going to echo what Gretchen said. I'm a data analyst, and if someone sends me a 1,000-line Excel file, I'm excited, but I know that buyers and sales reps are not. And so taking those data points and creating it into an image that tells a story for them really quickly, you got 30 seconds pretty much with these buyers to get their attention. And so being able to have that story there, dive down into it, that gives you the opportunity to open that door and explain a little bit more. And so that's for that data for that buyer. The buyer has a lot of meetings on their hands. And if you can just grab their attention for 2 minutes, you have their attention for a couple more days.
Awesome. That is so great. Great advice from all of you. And thank you all. I did see a couple questions come through. We will answer those after we dig into a little bit more. So stay tuned. We'll bring these panelists back on. But one thing that I think is similar outside of you all being great public speakers is that, surprise, surprise, you've each worked with SPS before. And I'm curious, in your use of sales and inventory data through our analytics solution, what experiences can you share? How has it impacted your retailer relationships? Joe, why don't we start with you?
My team, the sales team, the demand planning team, we love SPS because of how easy it is to use. Whenever I get emails from other software companies, I'm kind of like, oh no, what broke? But with SPS, when Nicole or Matt email me, I'm like, all right, what's new? What retailers joined the team? And so we can start meeting with them. I've trained the sales reps twice, and they no longer call me about issues. They know how to use it. And so when they're on the run in the airport or right before a buyer's meeting, they have the ability to go into SPS and know how to use it. They're building their own dashboards and their own reports now based on what the buyer needs. What season is it? Is it DIY projects? Is it spring going into summer, so they need hiking tools at their disposal? Or is it Christmas and we're doing some promotions, or is it Father's Day? So the experience with SPS is the ease of use, and then the amount of data that's in there. You can go as deep as you want from SKU level at the store location, by city, by zip code, and it's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Say Christmas, it's wild to think that's right around the corner in the holiday season. I know you all are in the thralls of that right now, and probably well underway. Gretchen, what would you add?
Well, so I actually worked for Edifice before it merged with SPS. So it has been fun to see the side of selling essentially SPS products to the flip side of using it. And now I would say I couldn't live without it. And this is not a sales pitch, it's honest. My organization relies so much on the sell-through component of our business. Like I alluded to at the beginning, the retail scene has changed. The way we have to analyze the business is different now. SPS makes it easy. And I work with a lot of software platforms in my current position. And not only is it easy to use, it looks pretty. And I hate to use those little layman terms, but that goes a long way when you're creating PowerPoints or you're needing to send slides to executives, where again, that's another group of individuals that have limited time. And so it's the ease of it and the accuracy, and SPS is always looking forward. So they don't remain happy with, okay, we're doing a great job today. It's more of how can we continue to improve and meet the needs of our customers and the retail scene, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I don't think it's cliche saying pretty. It matters because you all relayed that visualization really sets the tone and can carve out special time. And I know I've always been a much better reader of picture books than novels, so I can relate that maybe the data doesn't always reflect a story like a visualization of it does. Jack, why don't you round us out?
Yeah, it's hard to, Gretchen and Joe hit on most of the major points, but I'll add the word flexibility. No one likes to look at a system, a software package, a dashboard and say, well, this is what it is and you can't change it and you can't look at it this way or look at it that way. Well, in the world we live in today at retail, You have to look at it from all different angles. And some days you look at it this way, and some days you got to flip it around. You can do that with SPS. And then I'll also add the willingness of SPS staff to help you out. Whether or not it's the simplest, no offense, you don't call them up and there's something so simple on the site, you're just not seeing it, and they don't call you a dumb you know what because you missed it. They talk to you about it. They get you through it. And so I think flexibility and ease of use and also willingness to help are key factors.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. We truly value your business and honestly, the feedback that you've given us as we continue to grow and develop the solution. And speaking of which, I think we'll give you all a break. Let's turn the discussion over to Nicole and Maddie. Maddie.
Thank you.
All right, so we're bringing Nicole up here. So Nicole, if you wouldn't mind giving us just a brief background here on yourself, and then we will dive into that demo of the new dashboard.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Maddie.
Absolutely.
So hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Daly. I'm a retail intelligence executive. And as a member of the retail intelligence team, I combine my retail industry experience with my knowledge of the SPS analytic tools and consult users about the best practices for both the analysis of POS data, but also what to do with those insights that you might find. As part of my past experience, I've led many buyer meetings. And like other panelists shared today, I've learned that one, buyers don't have much time. So you've got to deliver something pretty, for sure, in a concise and quick and actionable way. Two, same source of truth is crucial. So any discrepancy in your data can derail a conversation really quickly. So you want to make sure that you can trust the information you're looking at and that as a valid source of truth. And third, pictures, as we mentioned, can be a really powerful tool to convey a message. Having an arrangement of graphs, charts, and actual images of your products within a dashboard can go a long way. Now, here at SPS, we found that while many reports and dashboards can support a buyer meeting, there isn't a way to lead a user through a meeting. So with the help of a focus group of SPS users, we now have implemented what we call the win-win buyer meeting dashboard. This prescriptive dashboard provides a process-driven approach to find wins and then communicate those insights. Added bonus here, right? As we mentioned, this activity can encourage confidence and trust in your retailer relationships. I'm going to be walking you through the dashboard within my demo environment. So give me just a moment and I'll share my screen. Great, thanks for waiting. So let's get started with this win-win buyer meeting dashboard. As I mentioned, this is a dashboard tool for power users, providing quick insights and a place to organize your thoughts in preparation for a really productive meeting with your business partner. Initial feedback from our users showed that they appreciate the process that's built in here and noted how especially helpful it would be for first-time meetings. And we all know, retail industry, right? There's a lot of churn here. So whether you have a brand new buyer this season or you're a brand new rep, this dashboard can kind of lead you through that process. So in that vein, we start this dashboard with tips for a successful meeting. Over here on the left-hand side, we have some descriptions about the dashboard you're going to look at and where to go for help if you need it. In the middle of the dashboard, we talk about how you can categorize the insights that you might be seeing. Are they great performance? Excuse me. Are they great performance? Have they exceeded expectations? Are they higher than average or maybe not, right? And depending on how and where those metrics kind of lie, you can then either expand and capitalize on the category as we had talked about today, or look for areas to drive more business, or maybe there's some refinement that needs to occur within the category itself. Finally, here on the right-hand side, we're talking about two major ways that you can use this dashboard. Number one, how to share it, right? So we teach you how to export this information in a couple quick steps. And we too also show you how to add images, which is a really cool feature that's new to the SPS tool and our pre-built dashboard environment. Last but not least, we love you guys for accessing our training center. Training center you can access directly by clicking here and I'll bring you right to the view and the downloadable guide and video to be able to learn more about a win-win buyer meeting. Let's move on now. I'm going to show you how powerful this process can be by starting on our next tab with the agenda and scorecard. Now, essentially, as you're preparing for a buyer meeting, you're likely going to just be meeting with one retailer at a time. So the first thing I'm going to do is narrow the focus to the individual retailer I want to talk to. I'll also make any other adjustments to the category, gender. Maybe I'm talking with the menswear, I don't know, sport buyer, right? I want to make sure that I narrow down to just that particular area of business. Next, I can narrow my time period to the dates that I want to discuss with my buyer. So maybe in my example today, I want to talk to them about how our early fall is doing. So maybe I want to go July to beginning of October, let's say. As you can see, the dashboard is now updated to reflect the top line sales. So at a glance, I know exactly what we sold and that we were up to last year. I can see where my inventory position is at this point, and is it up or down to last year? I can see my margins to understand the profitability and my sell-through percentages to understand the velocity of the sales we're seeing. Then we've got a couple really pretty pictures. I can see the detail of this year versus last year's sales by category and by silhouette in this case. And a sales trend of that time period, weeks 25 through 35, this year versus last year. Kind of get an understanding now, am I on pace with how I expect to be selling, or maybe I need a little bit of help? So just at this very top line, we can start to add to our big ideas. Okay, this is quite literally a text box that I can add notes into. So again, the buyers can see the weather, right? They can see up 42.6% to last year in retail sales. But why? What's driving it? So let's talk about that. It looks like it's the footwear area driving business. So we'll make that note. Okay, now check this out. What if I click on footwear? Now I understand the silhouettes within that category that drive business even further. So it's coming from ground, cushioning, and stability. Awesome. I'm going to add that detail here. Just put multiple silhouettes, if I can spell it correctly. Okay, great. Definitely be sure to come back and spell check before you share this with your business partner. Just clicking into the white space, I can now get back to the original view. And maybe this is the one that I want to have actually exported, or I could even leave it just set on footwear and have it export that way. Now that we've got a high level understanding of our business and what's moving and trending here, let's move on to the next layer of detail. Now, this is our hindsight review by product. Okay, click into that tab. Here, we're able to review sales contribution year over year and understand the products that make up our top performers based on retail sales. You can see that up in the blue. And the top opportunities based on low weeks of supply. That's down there in the orange. Again, I'm going to do the filtering to just look at our individual retailer and the individual, specific time period that we're going to focus on. I think I had weeks 25 to 35. Make that adjustment here. There we go. Now let's start actually looking at this data. So maybe I have a key account rep, or especially if I'm a new team member, I might not have a strong understanding of what happened last year. All right. So this bottom graph here, the pie charts, we can understand the contribution of sales across the different areas of business and how they were last year compared to this year. Now we've got apparel, for example. Looks like last year it made up about 64% of the sales. And this year, as we hover over it, it made up 77% of the sales. So the next question naturally, right? Why? Click on it. Now we're going to understand the top selling products during that time period and the items that sold through that have the lowest weeks of supply at the end of that season. So let's talk about this data a little bit. What I can understand here is that silly jeans sold really well, right? We've got them pretty much every color listed up here. We're going to take note of that. But before I write that down, notice this. If we compare the MSRP against the AUR, average selling price, we can see that these silly jeans were actually about 50% off for this time period. So Maybe we say markdown for silly jeans worked well. And take note of the sell-throughs, perhaps, to say that we had about 64 to 54, one low one here, but mostly they came up in the 60s and 50s percent sell-throughs. So I'll just say approximately 50% sell-through. Okay, but we also see some other winners. Downtown pants, and these were not on promotion or on discount, had some nice selling here, although we may have ended the season a little bit heavy. I'm going to list that as an opportunity. So perhaps we want to say downtown pants. Maybe we want to pull chase order earlier. Okay, I think maybe the inventory that hit a little late in the season here helped to have those really high weeks of supply at the end, but we did sell through at a nice pace. Okay, let's talk about the opportunities. Here, as I mentioned, right, we can narrow down, look at and compare the different metrics and understand these really low weeks of supply items. And perhaps I see Forever Sweats Limited is listed multiple times here as well across different colors. So maybe that's a win for us. We had actually meant to sell out of that item. So we sold through and have, let's see, what is that called? Sold through Forever Sweats. And that we have small weeks of supply left. Maybe I can add up these units and just see, okay, not too much inventory left. We've cleaned through it. That's great. All right, so again, spell check, add any other notes, adding in little data points and extra info is always a good idea. And I can leave this filter to apparel if I want that for my view. Or if I'm talking to a buyer that works on all the areas of business, maybe I'll bring it back to the original. Let's keep going now, location analysis. Same idea, I'm going to filter down to my individual retailer. I'm going to look across what my top selling stores are and my top opportunities based on low weeks of supply. But here's an added bonus. We also have the ability now to look at the average sales per door for the last 13 weeks. So this allows us to get a map, a true understanding of the national sales that we're looking at here. So we can pull out a couple things, right? We definitely see a lot of green happening on the West Coast, Southwest, that kind of thing. We see red happening in the North Midwest, mountain area, and little red down here, but everybody else is yellow. So what wins can I pull out from that information? Which stores and states are doing really well? I can see the states that are driving it, but once I, again, interact with the graph, and I can now see the stores within Texas that sell especially well. Now, I love this information too, because we have really simple metrics here called rankings. So what I always like to look at is how come it jumped up or jumped down from being the 7th place to last week, it's now the 48th place ranked store. What's happening there, right? Can we push some more marketing money over there? Can we set up for in-store flyers? Like, what else can we do to kind of drive sales to the stores located in Texas? Okay, and don't forget our top opportunities. Here are the stores that are basically out of stock. We need more inventory and we need it fast. So let's talk about that as some wins and opportunities of locations that we want to especially improve upon. Now that we've covered our location, we've covered our product, right? We can go back to the front page, add those notes here. What are our product notes? What are our location notes? Let's start thinking, what's next for the business? Well, that actually leads me to my last tab of this dashboard. So this is something very different. We really haven't done this before in SPS. And I'm sure you'd all agree that from both the buyer and vendor perspective, it can be difficult to remember what each of your products looks like. So you can use this template to really drive home your recommendations by adding in images and details. So let's give it a try. I'm going to browse for a picture that I've saved onto my computer, or you can use one that you have from the internet. Okay, we're going to actually be expanding upon our accessories line, let's say. So I want to let the buyer know that this has an MSRP of $39.99, and we are suggesting maybe a 500 unit order, and how much that's going to cost. This is going to come in blue and black, right? And any other pertinent information I want to make sure to include here. Maybe suggest the doors that we want to put it in, that kind of thing. So I can keep going and add additional images. We're going to do a couple backpacks and maybe a hat here too. Really expand that accessories business for the following year. Now that essentially is one of my big key takeaways for the future planning. We are expanding accessories business. All right, good stuff, and definitely add in some more context there. So again, let's go back to our agenda page. What's next for the business? Accessories, right? And then last item listed here is what's happening in the total marketplace. So this isn't necessarily an answer that you're going to find within the dashboard you're looking at here, but this is something that you can find when you look across your multiple retailers within performance analytics. So what's happening across my total marketplace, like in accessories category, for example, that I'm seeing a reason why my buyer at big box retailer should buy into that product. So not only is it selling okay here, but why should they expand upon it, right? So maybe I'm seeing a competitor of theirs is selling more of these accessory items. They're doing really well and they have similar store setups. Let's add it into assortment. Let's give it a try. I think it was actually all of the panelists kind of made mention, start small. Let's test it in a couple doors or test it online and see where it goes from there, right? So those are the things that retailers especially don't have insight to and really, really want insight to. All right, so you may have noticed, right, this entire dashboard, it's a concept that we really haven't put into the tool before, and we are so excited to make this enhancement on behalf of our users. We believe this dashboard helps to guide users through the process of discovering and sharing insights in a simplified and meaningful way with their business partners. So let's wrap this up by actually sharing this dashboard. Once you get it all set in place, be sure to save it, and then it's a simple file, export to PDF. We can then either email it over to our business partners or perhaps share it amongst our internal teams. Lots of different use cases here for this dashboard, but as mentioned, it is flexible, it can bring images, it looks pretty, and it's got everything packed into one nice tight package. Thank you for the time, everyone. I'm going to send it back over to Maddie and Tyler for our Q&A portion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. That was awesome. I know being prepared for a buyer's meeting just got a lot easier thanks to your team and that dashboard. So thank you for sharing that dashboard and that process with us today.
You're very welcome.
Awesome. So thanks to everybody too who was submitting questions during the event. Keep posting them too. We're going to get through some of these and get started with our questions. So we're going to welcome back all of our experts, Gretchen, Joe, and Jack. And we do have Tyler up here as well and Nicole to answer some questions here too. So we will get started here. Welcome back to everybody. Our first question actually is coming from Reed. So our first question is actually about that shop and shop experience. So the question is, as a very small vendor in some of the bigger doors like Dick's Sporting Goods or REI, we don't have the opportunity to try a shop and shop. Is there a particular set of data that you're pulling to kind of help grow that assortment for those teams? So Gretchen, I know you kind of talked about that, so maybe you want to kick us off and then we can pass it to the others.
So I would say inventory is one of the most, then also the sell-through. Automatically, when you're doing a shop and shop, you are typically going to be flooding that particular door or set of doors with more inventory than if you're looking at, let's say with Dick's Sporting Goods, then you would have for the remainder. So you need to know that up front, that your inventory levels would be a little skewed, but then it comes into play the importance of your sell-through. And then also any type of turn, once you start looking at the more season to date information to date, along with the gross margin, as always, that I mentioned earlier, because it's really all those three components is what we continually track. And we do it on a weekly basis, a monthly. So it's all of the buckets of data that SPS provides. So the week to date, the month to date, the season to date, the year to date. We haven't quite reached a year anniversary. So looking at anything that would be LI isn't appropriate yet. But we will continue to track that, those lines, once we do anniversary the year in those shop and shops. But I would say those would be components, and along with the inventory would be your weeks of supply, because you will sell through is going to be a little less since you're sitting on so much inventory. But as the business starts to increase, you should see that the sell-through is higher, hopefully, because the sales are just that much better.
Those are some really great, helpful suggestions there, Gretchen. Jack and Joe, anything to add to that question about the shop and shop opportunity and what data to gather?
We look at when we're trying to get into a new retailer or offer a new tool into a new retailer, we look at old launches at different retailers and demonstrate with that data how it performed. And that's a good way to demonstrate what sell-through looks like. Week to dates and month to dates after a launch, how quickly it moved out, how many turns the retailer, without naming their name, how many times they order from you to get that inventory back in stock. And I think that's a good way and a good metric in SPS to demonstrate the success of a certain product.
Yeah, another great recommendation. Jack, anything to add there?
I think everybody pretty much covered it. I think the only thing I would add is the combination of products in a shop and shop, using that data to analyze to make sure you're providing the best experience for the consumer, that you're not putting two items in that would compete with each other. And again, I think that's all data driven, and you use that in preparation to show a buyer in a presentation on how it can increase their business with a shop and shop.
Well, Reed, hopefully we answered your question there about that experience and some opportunities to share data with your partners here. Our next question here comes from Esther, kind of a dual question, and I'm actually going to pass it to Nicole first because it's kind of about the product. So Nicole, how does SPS actually gather the data for those dashboards since it's in SPS Analytics? And two parts to that question. Is the data only from your company, or is a combination of every company who works in that same category? So you could shed some light on that. That would be awesome.
Oh, sure. Great question. So essentially the data that you're going to see within the SPS Analytics tool is a combination of the retailer's data that's coming in that you're connected to. So whichever retailers you sell through, they provide that data to SPS or via you, right? So we could take buyer's reports, or maybe we take EDI files or direct portal connections. So we take it in multiple different ways, right? We then organize it, validate it, cleanse it, make sure it's exactly what it's supposed to be, goes through quite a QC process, and then put that back out to you using, right, that combination. So it's the retailer data, but in your language. So we use things called an item master or location master. And essentially it's how you describe each of your UPCs and each of the stores that you sell in. So let's say you could organize it to see what's selling in the climate of, Midwest, Upper West, or whatever, and then this particular category as you name it, okay? So we organize it in that kind of overlay is what I really want to say. Now, this data can come from, as I mentioned, any of the retailers that you might be connected with. So definitely work with your SPS partners to be able to figure out what's the best way for that data to come in. Now, I'd love to actually toss this over to Tyler and see if he has anything to add.
Yeah, thanks. I think you really summed that up quite nicely. The two things that I'll add are one, we're data agnostic. We don't care how the data is. You reference buyer reports, could be an email, Excel file, portal. We don't really care. We just love data, and we are full service. So we'll go out and grab that and run through that process that Nicole talked on, that synthesizing, cleansing, and then translating into language that works for you. The one thing I will add, we've got an extensive data acquisition team here at SPS. And because of our fulfillment business, we have a very large network of retailers that we work with, either on an exclusive partnership where we actually help own and manage the data on their behalf, some pretty big retailers that we do that with, or an elevated partnership where we're kind of a premier partner, if you will, that helps work on that data piece. So that does help having the network. But if there are any retailers where you're struggling understanding if they get data, reach out to us. We might have a conversation already underway. We're constantly growing the network that we operate with and where we get data and the retailers that we work with. And frankly, we've got an entire retail network expansion team that's their role. They go out and develop those relationships with retailers, because we know if we can equip you with the data, you can help them sell more at their accounts. And we love telling that story. Thank
you, Tyler, for adding on to Nicole as well. So love all of those questions coming in and the discussion about the network and as well. So our next question here, similar vein of product, how do each of you identify the most important metrics within SPS that is most relevant to your buyers? So maybe we can start with Joe on this one here, and then we'll continue to pass to our other panel members.
I'm going to say that 100% depends on the retailer that I'm talking with. If it's Lowe's or Home Depot, it's definitely margin. They want to know if they're going to make those 40 points for every sale they make of a Leatherman tool. If it's REI, Bass Pro Shop, or Cabela's, it's definitely sell-through. They want to know what's going to fly off the shelves. And then Costco, they want to know what's something new. And so if you go into a Costco right now, you'll see one of our brand new tools there that no one else can sell because it's an exclusive to them. But so it depends on who you're talking to. But I would say the top three for me would be margin, weekly sell-through, and then on-hand inventory.
Perfect. Thank you. And as it is helpful to know, right, for all of those different partners, kind of what they're looking for, right? So Jack, what do you have to add there?
I'd like to say ditto to what Joe said. He said it perfectly. You really need to find out what your customer is looking for and what's important. And also don't be afraid to ask questions regarding that, meaning that sometimes I always like to know where we stand compared to where his or her department sales are standing. And so again, go back to the customer. Each one is totally different. And each one either rates one of those data points at the top of their list versus not being as important. The good news is it's all there to get. It's just a matter of picking it out by retailer, which one of those data points are the most important for them.
Awesome. Gretchen, anything that you want to add? Or are you a ditto as well?
I mean, I am a ditto as well.
I love it. I love it.
I would just say the only other thing kind of to Jack's point is obviously asking if you're not sure with the buyer, but also if you listen carefully, they will mention the metric over and over again that is most important to them. So the one that you hear the most is the one that's most important to them. But on the flip side of that is if possibly you have a buyer who's newer to the organization or newer to their department, that's when sometimes we will utilize the way that other retailers have analyzed their business. And we've seen a lot of success with that, where we will start to volunteer to include those metrics in there. So for example, if this buyer seems very prevalent on the sell-through metric, yet we work with a lot of retailers that care about the margin, we might start taking a look at that margin, because just because the sell-through is high, it could be because the product is marked down, and that's why it's selling out faster. So we do use some of the experience we've had with others, but then again, what that retailer is speaking most about is going to be what's most important to them.
I love that, picking up on those little things, right, that people say over and over again. That's a great tip as well. All right, we have got just a couple more questions here. So I am going to pass this one to Nicole as well, because I think it was during our demo of that dashboard, talking through the date bar across the top. It showed the full year, and we can reduce that, right, to show specific weeks. Could you talk a little bit more about that bar and kind of the view that you're going to be getting with adjusting the weeks?
Yeah, definitely. So the dashboard that we looked at today specifically is part of our pre-built SPS best practice dashboards. So we're limited here in the sense that we're looking at just the last 52 weeks of data, and we're kind of stuck in that calendar. We do that on purpose to allow this dashboard to run really, really quickly and be able to be accessible on a mobile device per se, okay? Now, if you wanted to go through and actually adjust your time period, we can still do that, right? With a simple update to create a new data set and to make that swap. Then we can have the flexibility, but might not run quite as quickly. So it's kind of a this or that, I guess, that you've got to kind of weigh that risk. But yes, it's possible. And I would encourage you to reach out to analytics support at spscommerce.com or retail intelligence at spscommerce.com. And we would really love to take you through that example.
Fantastic. Tyler, anything that you wanted to add there as well?
She gave a plug for herself, and that's what I was going to do. As part of SPS, we provide free consultation services via our retail intelligence team. And Nicole downplayed her experience, but that entire team are all previous buyers and have a ton of experience on what works, what resonates, and how to make an impact. And so if you have questions on, hey, what are other suppliers looking at potentially, what report would I prepare for a distributor, any of the customization pieces they can help you with, and they love to adapt and make sure that we can customize the tool for you. I did see a question that I wanted to pass back to Nicole, just so we don't miss it, Maddie, and it was wondering I'm guessing one of our existing customers. I'm curious on where this the buyer report, the win-win buyer report, lives within the analytics tool, and I'll pass it back to Nicole to answer.
Oh, sure. Great question. So if you're an existing user today, once you log into your performance analytics tool, you should see a row of folders across the top of your screen. The second folder over is dashboards. Clicking into there will give you another set of folders, and you want to find your strategic folder within that bucket. Within that, you'll then see win-win buyer meeting.
Awesome. I think we just got another question in too, and I believe that is in the same vein as well. So we don't have any additional questions, but if there is anything additional that our panel members would like to add before wrapping it up today, I'd love to offer an opportunity to just close it out before we end and wrap up our session today.
Don't be afraid to reach out to SPS for help. There are some amazing features that I didn't know existed, and I've been using it for 4.5 years. And I think probably 2 months ago, Nicole and Matt showed me something brand new that blew my mind. So always reach out for help. And then you guys know I work at Leatherman Tool Group. You can find me on LinkedIn, but I'm also willing to help anybody out use this awesome and amazing tool.
Same here to Joe's point. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We're all in this together, and we're in a unique environment, especially after this past COVID year. So we're all here to help each other and help our customers in the end.
Yeah. And I agree with that, because I think we are all learning how to navigate this new retail world. And I think it's great that SPS even offers this for a way for us to connect with other organizations, just to see how they're handling. One of the things that I didn't mention is the impact right now of the port delays. And it would be great to be able to partner with people who are in a similar situation, where what happens when a bulk of your product that you sell to your retailers is stuck on a boat and you don't know when it's going to get in. So just problem solving like that. So I love the opportunity this is provided to connect and learn from each other.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Gretchen, Jack, Joe, Tyler, and Nicole.
Thank you.
This has been a blast and fantastic conversation. So we are so excited. We'll do just a little bit of wrap up here before we send you on your way. So here we go. We hope that you guys all got a great tip or two from today's discussion. We love for you to watch for an email from SPS with a summary of today's conversation, as well as an invitation to take a short survey about the event. If you want to take the survey now, we do have the QR code up on the screen as well. So you're welcome to use the QR code or that email as well. And as a thank you for completing that survey, we'll make sure to send you a $5 Starbucks gift card to refuel you and get going on analyzing some data. And if you would like to learn more about automating the processes that we've discussed today, please reach out to Megan Becker to learn more about our SPS Commerce Analytics solution. And her contact information is just up on the screen. And that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you all have a wonderful day.